So in this screencast, we're going to consider differentiation strategy in the sportswear industry, and we're going to begin off by looking at Nike. So this is another kind of standard value chain diagram, and I've just put this together as an illustrative example. Obviously, what you've got here is you've got the kind of support activities. And these support activities are a little bit different than the support activities I've shown you on previous diagrams. And we have got the kind of primary activities. And as you can see, the primary activities on this example are a little bit different. So whereas we had research and development in the kind of previous example, this has got kind of technological development up here, which is kind of linked to IT. But we've still got essentially the same activities, but they're just kind of represented slightly different in this diagram. I'm not going to talk to you about all of the value chain activities in this diagram. I'm just going to pick out the things that are most significant for Nike and just think about what this means for Nike's kind of overall approach to their business level strategy. So how do they focus on becoming a differentiator? So I would say that the main features of Nike's differentiation strategy are their technological development, which is based around their investment in research and development. They've got a major research and development centre at their headquarters in Beaverton, which is in Oregon, Portland. And this really, in doing this, what are they doing? Well, we can measure how much money they spend on technological development. And if you dig into the Nike reports, their annual reports and their Nike Investor Day Relations presentation reports, you'll find information on their development of research and development. But what this does is it helps them develop proprietary knowledge, or patents, in other words, patents which they can take out on technology, some of which they use and some of which they don't use. So Nike take out a lot of patents per year based on technologies that they've developed. Some of these patents they put into use in their shoes to add features which allow them to charge a premium price. Interestingly, some of those other patents they don't actually put into use immediately in their trainers, but they patent that technology to block other manufacturers from taking it up and using it. So really that's kind of throwing up a barrier to entry to reduce the threat of new entrants and to kind of stake out a business position. So that's an interesting defensive strategy that Nike have put in place there. But really, technological development based around, innovation and quality as core competencies, the four building blocks, are really important here for Nike. And we just look at their track record in their kind of Air Soles, Apple collaborations in Nike Plus, and apps that they've developed now. And interestingly, they're also developing 3D printing. Now, there is an article for you to read about 3D printing and Nike and their use of artificial intelligence and how this is kind of revolutionizing potentially their business model. A lot of what you read in textbooks around Nike is now, I think, a bit out of date. And I would include in this, actually, the Global Economics of Sport textbook, which is written by Chris Grattan and Darryl Wilson and Girish Ramchandani and other collaborators at Sheffield Hallam University. That identifies Nike as being a kind of strategic outsourcer. Now, it is a strategic outsourcer. It does manufacture all of its goods in lower wage economies. So it's a US headquartered business, but it manufactures globally outside of the US in lower wage economies to drive down its costs, to improve its efficiency and to increase the margin. Now that does create issues for Nike in terms of weakness, because we're all aware of allegations of poor working conditions in some of the kind of factories that make Nike goods. And Nike is trying to make strides to kind of improve conditions, and has got a kind of inspection system and minimum standards that it expects of factories. But that is a weakness to some extent in the kind of brand of Nike, that kind of flows from the kind of strategic outsourcing. And the other thing as well is that although they were an early adopter of strategic outsourcing, and in the sportswear market, they were one of the first to do this, if not the first. If we think about Vrio, how difficult is it actually to outsource manufacturing? Other manufacturers like Adidas, Under Armour, all the major manufacturers have done this. Puma used to manufacture in Germany but was struggling in terms of its profitability because of that, and so followed suit by outsourcing its manufacturing to lower wage economies. So strategic outsourcing is now a kind of minimum standard. It's a kind of threshold. If we think about Vrio, it's not valuable, it's not rare, it is not inimitable, it's not difficult to copy. So it falls down on some of those things. So that doesn't really afford Nike these days competitive advantage. Now, if we look up at technological development, 3D printing, and I suggest after this you read the article on Nike and 3D printing, what we're seeing is that Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour are all investing in 3D printing. Now, why are they doing that? Well, they believe that they can drive down costs further by investing in 3D printing so that they can become more operationally efficient. But they also think that they can customize and differentiate more by using different midsole densities that individual buyers are going to be able to specify, so that they can print different kinds of shoes which are more tailored to people, which is going to allow them to kind of charge a higher price. But the actual manufacturing costs, the operational costs, are going to be lower. So I would say that, innovation and technological development is increasingly important for Nike as part of their differentiation strategy. I think strategic outsourcing and manufacturing abroad is less of a competitive edge. It's just what everybody does now. It's an industry standard. So I think technological development, research and development, and continuing investment in 3D printing is a source of competitive advantage and real strength. And I also think that marketing and sales are the other real source of strength for Nike. So we've said previously that Nike are a $30 billion plus business, and they spend 10% of their business of their turnover on their marketing budget. So that gives them a very substantial marketing budget. And also through marketing and careful branding, they've kind of got a very distinctive and strong brand identity, which they enhance by kind of, a certain attitude to kind of athlete sponsorship and endorsement, but also other kind of things which are not necessarily about athlete endorsement, which you can do more research on yourself. And also we've talked about kind of service, and we've said that after purchase, you buy a pair of trainers from Nike, but if they're able to be linked up with Nike ID and other apps, that gives a kind of after sales service in terms of, supporting your training, your activity, giving you feedback and so on. So there is an after sales service there. But for me, the real issues with Nike's differentiation strategy, which allows them to charge this kind of premium price to develop innovative products, is technological development and research and development. And that is really aligned to the four building blocks of innovation and quality, developing high quality cutting edge goods as well. So for me, those are the two kind of key areas really for Nike. And a lot of this does begin back with Nike and iPod. the first collaboration. Now, if we'd been in a classroom situation, I would now play you several videos about how technology and innovation is really driving the kind of battle for competitive advantage in the sportswear market. So what I would do is I would encourage you now to watch the videos that are linked from the workbook for this week and to reflect on those. Okay. So what we have is that there are a number of videos and articles for you to read. And in reflecting on those, you'll understand how the business is changing and that, you know, organisations can't just rely on competitive advantage staying static. They've got to realise that bases for competitive advantage might change as technological development in the external environment actually brings about new technologies, which opens up new possibilities for manufacturing, including 3D printing and new materials. And that can improve both the efficiency in the way they produce and ship and distribute goods. They'll be able to manufacture by 3D printing goods much closer to the markets in which they will be used, which is going to reduce shipping costs and times. So actually distributing these products from the Far East where they're manufactured across the globe, they can be manufactured far closer to home. That reduced shipping costs. It reduces the time lag between goods being made and getting into shops, so they become more efficient that way. And also it reduces Nike's global kind of environmental footprint, which is important for businesses these days as well. So this generates a lot of kind of advantages for organisations. So I suggest that you watch the videos and then read the articles which explain how this is really driving change in this particular market.